And to move on to the last segment, we're going to be talking about Jayce Tingler, kind of giving our grades on him. Luckily, we're recording this right after this Machado incident, so he definitely gets a little boost from us Padre fans here on kind of evaluating him. But he's had some very questionable lineups at times. A lot of Tommy Pham's batting cleanup, which has been very interesting. Though he did hit a home run last Saturday, but some of the lines have been weird. A lot of people we've been I don't know if critical is the right word, but we've discussed like, hey, should he have pulled this guy early? A couple times we were really against it. A couple times with Snell, we're like, let him pitch like this last guy. Like, it's a guy that he's, it would be like a guy that he's gone up against and struck him out twice. And we're like, you got to let him stay in there for that third time through. But for the most part, I think it's been a little bit tough to grade him. I think the only thing that I would say is really like bothered me a lot has been the lineups. And I don't even know if that's all him. I mean, that could be a lot of Preller influencing those lineups. So it's kind of hard to just solely like get mad about the lineups and blame it all on Tingler. But Ryan, what's your grade for Jayce Tingler this far into the year?
Yeah, I have less of an issue with like lineups and bullpen management just because I think so much of that does come from front office. Health is obviously factored in those decisions, and it's early in the year. So like I've seen a couple times, we've all seen like whoever's maybe 5 innings looking good, but he's at 100 pitches, and you just go, you know what, it's April 16th, we can pull him. So I'm not too worried about bullpen management and stuff like that. Of course, there are questionable things. They're like, I'm going to question a bullpen move here and there. It's 162 games, but I'm not that worried about that long term. Last when Tatis hit the 3-0 slam and the Rangers got all pissy and in their feels about it, I was mad at Tingler because he seemed to have sided with the Rangers as opposed to with his 21-year-old at the time superstar. And he was like, yeah, Tatis probably shouldn't be swinging right there. We gave him the take sign. I thought at the time, Tingler should have come out and said, dude, he hit a grand slam. Like, that's my superstar player. He's hitting a grand slam. It's fun to watch. Like, F yeah. That's what I wanted to see. And I was kind of frustrated with Tingler at the time, honestly. I think I might have even sent a couple tweets that weren't the nicest words his way. Yesterday, there was another kind of made-up BS scandal. It was Machado as opposed to the 3-0 slam this time. Tingler came out today. It is different because the Cardinals weren't the ones upset. It was random YouTubers who are nobody's fuzzy. Tingler came out full-fledged defense of Manny. Quotes that made me ready to run through a brick wall. Quotes that the Padres put on their Instagram and Twitter. How often do you see a quote from a manager on the team's social media? I mean, that's how good they were. It was stuff about he won us the ball game. The narrative is tired. And it is. What that tells me is Tingler has the respect of every dude in that clubhouse, right? Tatis clearly likes him. He's got Manny's back. We know that from today. Will Myers is probably the best case of all time of going from a manager he hated to a manager he loved. So the in-game tic-tac-toe moves, I don't really care that much about those until the playoffs. Of course, in a moment, it's like, why did he pull him there? Why did he pull this guy here? Over 162, that's going to balance out. In the playoffs, if he does something dumb, then we can get mad. I care way more about how the clubhouse is feeling. Are the boys ready to play every day? Are we ready to rock and roll? And right now, I mean, missing 5 regulars and you go out and sweep one of the best teams in the National League, something's cohesive there. Something's gelling. And I'm not saying it's all on Tingler. I think it's a group of really good dudes. I really do. But I think Tingler's a great leader, and he's got my support 100%.
Yeah, and I remember when we hired Jayce Tingler, I thought we were going from Andy Green to Andy Green 2.0. I think we all did. But so far, I think the Padres right now have the most amount of days of players on the IL. I don't know if I said that right, but I'm pretty sure we're at the top right now. And we're second in the NL. Like, we've been playing such good baseball, and yes, you're right. Throughout the season, we're going to be like, what the hell was he doing? Like, why did he take out, I don't know, Blake Snell and put in Craig Stammen or something? Hey, credit to Craig Stammen. We hate on that guy a lot, but he's been fantastic. But Jayce Tingler deserves at least a B+ or an A- from me. And before that Machado stuff, it would be like a B-. But after that, dude got a huge boost. Like, that was the best thing I've ever seen, heard, whatever, of Jayce Tingler. That was so good. Just backing up your player, knowing that that's a baseball play that's going to happen in baseball. Contact, just because it's not football or basketball, it doesn't mean contact doesn't happen in baseball. It's going to happen. So, overall, Jason has been doing an amazing job. Maybe, yes, have been some questionable stuff. We did nitpick the lineup for sure, but that's because I don't think any four of us or any Padre fan wants to see Tommy Pham batting cleanup ever. And I mean, yeah, he hit a home run, but I don't think anyone wants to see that really. I think he's more of a 6-7 hole hitter. But, with considering the circumstances, considering all the guys that have been on the IL, considering, the COVID list right now, he's just managed an amazing season so far, and I expect that to continue. So absolutely great job for Jayce Tingler.
Yeah, I'm coming around to Jayce Tingler a lot. I would give him the same grade, Isaac, like a B to an A. When they first hired him, I was like, wow, we really just let Ron Washington walk away back to the Braves like that. I was a big Ron Washington fan. I thought that's the guy I still kind of want to this day, but if everybody on board, the Padres and the whole team is okay with Jayce, then I can't be mad at it because, man, he's way better than he was, or he's way better than Andy Green was. You can tell the team was not behind Andy Green. Myers absolutely hated Andy Green. You saw that off the live stream, if you guys remember that at all. So Tingler has his players back. So, and we nitpick a lot of things like, oh my God, he shouldn't have sent Grisham a third on that play, or why are you stealing third with Machado? Why are you stealing third with this guy? Or the lineups have been iffy, or some bullpen calls. But, for the most, he's gotten it right. He's managed one hell of a season so far with all the injuries and everything. And this is probably his best managed series considering all the injuries to the bullpen, all the guys out right now. So, yeah, he's definitely got a B+ to an A for me.
And I'm kind of there with you guys too. I think early on in the year we would get a little bit upset about some of the decisions, but I remember we were talking one day and we're like, hey, when we were talking about the bullpen stuff about him pulling guys early, and we got a little bit frustrated a few times on that. A lot of it was especially with Blake Snell, and it was just like, hey, we can't be doing this to Blake Snell again. We already saw him get pulled a bunch, and that it feels like it kind of rattled him a little bit. But we've seen hey, it's the beginning of the year. Guys' arms aren't stretched out. Maybe he doesn't believe they're going to do great. And, in a couple of those situations, we saw Tim Hill come in, who we've already mentioned, but we saw him come in and get out of these jams and stuff. And, for whatever reason, he wasn't confident in the start to do that. Maybe that's not him. We were talking about the lineups. That might not even be Jayce Tingler. I mean, that could be Preller. I'm not exactly sure who's doing it. And it could easily be a combination of them. So to just completely blame him and only judge him on lineups and in-game moves and stuff like that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of it is him. But I think, when you kind of compare him to Andy Green, it's night and day, and how the ball club responds to him. And I like that, Ryan, you brought up, last year with the Tatis stuff. And I think we're upset about that too, because why aren't you defending Tatis? And the whole fan base is around him hey, hit a grand slam if you get a pitch to hit a grand slam on. Who cares about this unwritten rule? And then this time around, it's almost kind of questioning Manny and saying he's going in trying to injure a player. And he's like, no, that is not the case. So maybe he's gonna, for this unwritten rule, it's a little bit different of a situation. But the second he kind of questions this guy's integrity to the game, his superstar, he didn't have any of that, and he wasn't about to not make a comment on it, which I love that he goes out there and makes that comment and says, this is it's a tired conversation. We don't need to have this conversation anymore. We know who Manny is, and we talked about him earlier, in this recording. He's a good guy. He's presented himself as a fantastic person. I mean, you have a lot of other players. We were talking about just none of these guys on the Padres are steroid users. None of them, have criminal cases. None of them have this. A lot of them are donating a lot of money to charities. They've all been stand-up people, and Manny has been, an exceptional person in San Diego. So I just don't see why we don't really look at Tingler and just say, hey, the Padres look like a different franchise, like a different organization, and he's one of the main reasons why. So definitely think you got to give him a lot of credit for that. I also think at the same time, he's going to be a guy that's going to get criticized a lot if he makes poor decisions in playoff games. That's any manager, that's any team that has high aspirations and World Series aspirations. So there's going to be times when everyone's going to get upset at Tingler. That's just sports. That happens in any sport with the coaching staff. And that's why a lot of times the coaching staffs go before, the star players do, before they teams decide to move on from those players because they want to make adjustments and they feel like, hey, this was a bad decision. So we're going to expect him to kind of be in some fire throughout his time in San Diego. Doesn't mean that he's been one of the people at the forefront of turning this franchise around. So got to give credit where credit's due, and I think we got to give a lot of that to Jayce Tingler. So I think the B to A range is good. He cleans up some of these, in our opinion. And also this is opinion based too. So like if we don't like the lineup, and he likes the lineup, and they're producing and winning games, it's hard to really, really criticize that. But, we're just going to talk about what we feel like. So if we think that it's a bad lineup, then we're going to say it's a bad lineup. But doesn't mean that we don't look at him as a whole and go, it's a completely different story with Jayce Tingler running this team. So definitely happy that he is the manager. And I like that you brought up too, Isaac, Andy Green 2.0. I'm pretty confident that I can say, hey, he's not Andy Green 2.0 because we've seen a completely different guy. So I think that'll do it for this Jayce Tingler grading. And I think that's going to do it for this episode as well. So I want to say thanks for everyone that checked us out. And thanks, Ryan, for coming on. This was a super fun time recording this. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, get your Padres content. It's always great to kind of talk about this stuff. And we're going to keep, doing these grades and stuff, but really fun episode kind of giving these quarter season grades. And, the Padres are second best team in the NL right now, and they've had a ton of injuries to endure. So I think we're just going to see this ball club surge right now. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.